my dear friends, we just got some very exciting news for Ahsoka Season 2. Star Wars Celebration is just around the corner, April 18th to April 20th, just a couple of days before the release of Andor's final season. And while there is no doubt that is going to be the main focus at the convention, we also know that just like a couple of years ago in London, there is going to be a live-action showcase. This is where Lucasfilm highlights the upcoming shows and movies. There is a very strong chance this is where we get our first teaser trailer for The Mandalorian and Grogu, but also in the Mandoverse. While there is no confirmation of this, and of course filming hasn't officially begun, we might be getting something very small for Ahsoka Season 2. I know, it's a bit ambitious, but the reason I say this is Rosario Dawson has now been confirmed as a guest. And you might be wondering, well Meg, if filming hasn't begun, how is Lucasfilm gonna have anything to show us? For one thing, here in the UK pre-production is about to begin, and they've been doing costume tests. We've also heard several casting rumours, character updates, and given Lucasfilm's track record, they might have filmed something in private, maybe for a specific promo. Just some speculation on my end, but also keep in mind that back in 2023, they had fully edited post-production footage for shows that wouldn't come out for another year or so. And so coupled with the announcement that Rosario Dawson is going to be in attendance, I would take this as a very good sign. And let's be realistic, I'm not expecting much, but just a tiny sizzle reel of visual effects, maybe a 10-second tease with a Season 2 logo, or Filoni giving us some behind-the-scenes information. I'm not expecting anything major, but considering Ahsoka Season 2 is the only other confirmed live-action show in the future slate, I would expect them to acknowledge it. I can imagine Dave Filoni talking about it, perhaps discussing the creative direction of the second season, the recasting of Baylan Skoll, and fingers crossed, maybe a release date. The problem is that if we do get some kind of teaser, it's not going to be made public. It's just going to be for those in attendance. Someone might film it, and then it's taken down, but it will definitely spark some FOMO. The focus, aside from Andor, is going to be on The Mandalorian and Grogu. We might get a full cast announcement, and for the first time in several years, a public teaser trailer for a Star Wars movie. How exciting. I know there have been a ton of leaks and rumours, but no one really knows what to expect. And so, in the words of Ahsoka Tano herself, I like firsts, good or bad, they're always memorable. And just like I did in 2023, I will be documenting all of the news as it emerges, but this is a big one guys. A big prediction, just like for the Kenobi show in 2022, Mando Season 3 in 2023, those in attendance will be treated to the first couple of episodes of Andor Season 2 a couple of days early. But when you look at what's going on with Star Wars, it's kind of insane how we just have 2 live-action shows left. And I think personally what I really like about Star Wars Celebration is it gives us a little bit of insight into where the company is at, creatively speaking. It is true they often overpromise, and I'm sure once again they're going to announce projects that are never going to see the light of day. That's just the way things go. I mean, take a look at 2020. The Mandalorian Season 2 was out, and we were looking forward to the promise of Kenobi, Rangers of the New Republic, Lando, Ahsoka, so many shows. Many of them never happened. Some of them were great, some of them were fine, some were disappointments. But now we're reaching a very strange bridge. Just a handful of years ago, Disney and Lucasfilm saw the streaming service as the future home for Star Wars content. But because the TV series ended up being a mixed bag, with overall very poor return on investment, what is the next step? Considering we're about to see the return of Star Wars movies, how is it going to be weighted? Where does the emphasis lie? Are the movies going to be the new focus, with the television shows being there to fill in the gaps? Or against all the odds, is it possible they're going to announce a new slate of TV shows, but this time with lower budgets? If they don't, there are just 2 left. Which means I do think there's a good chance we get some kind of update. But they probably will also address if The Mandalorian is going to return to the streaming service. I guess it all depends on if the movie does well or not. And another consideration, my dear friends, is this Star Wars Celebration is going to be very different to the one in London. And I'm not just talking about the location. This is the first official event since The Acolyte. I don't know if you guys remember, but they really pushed it at the last one. But now the show's come out, and it's been cancelled. We're gonna see if they address it. Did the way that show was received affect the upcoming announcements? I've heard through the grapevine, and do take this with a pinch of salt, the poor reception to The Acolyte was a big moment of reflection for those at Lucasfilm. It was really deflating for them. So is there going to be some kind of course correction? Is there going to be a change of priorities? I just have a feeling there's going to be a different vibe at this one. And remember, just because The Acolyte itself was cancelled, doesn't mean they're never going to continue the story of Chimera and Darth Plagueis. But I have to say, on the Ahsoka front, in terms of Star Wars shows that concern Force users, that has to be the one show I'm most excited about. I would say I've been very level-headed and balanced when it comes to criticisms of Dave Filoni. The good, the bad, the great stories, the great characters, but also where he's fallen flat. But I really do still have hope in his abilities. Sometimes he's over-criticized, sometimes he's overpraised, but I do think due to his relationship to George Lucas, he's in a position at Lucasfilm where he understands at least the essence of what Star Wars is about. I might not agree with the way he portrayed Thrawn in Ahsoka. As a Timothy Zahn fan, as a fan of Star Wars Rebels, I much prefer Thrawn in other content, but I'm staying hopeful and keeping my fingers crossed until we get Ahsoka Season 2 and his movie. There is still plenty of story left, and plenty of time to show us his vision. I'm always trying to be a hopeful Star Wars fan. So are we going to get something at Star Wars Celebration for it? I'm giving it a 70% chance of the answer being yes. Another major focus is going to be Lucasfilm animation. I think there will be a couple of surprises, but we generally have a ballpark idea of the kinds of things they're going to announce. If they really wanted to surprise us, they could give us a Skeleton Crew Season 2 update. I know there's been a lot of contention and controversy surrounding analytics, data, viewership, but this was such a breath of fresh air. And that brings us on to a very hopeful update. This comes from Wim himself, Ravi Kabuts-Konyas. In a brand new interview with thedirect.com, he says, just like the rest of the cast, he is very hopeful for a Season 2. And his message to the fandom, I would say definitely be hopeful about it. But we don't know if anything is set in stone. There have been some rumblings and some rumours behind the scenes. Jon Watts really is pushing for it. Despite early reports in 2023 about production issues, it sounds like Jon Watts and Chris Ford had a lot of fun. And because you have this group of friends, with a lot of years until The Force Awakens, the sky's the limit, without the inherent necessity of crossover. And so just one final update, this is going to be the last time we talk about this, but Skeleton Crew's viewership has dipped again. For episode 8, the finale, we finally had the data. It did not make the top 10 Illuminate. Big surprise? No, not really. It's been the trend. But you can tell from Lucasfilm's attitude, on the Star Wars website, on Star Wars social media, what the creatives have been saying, that the way they feel about Skeleton Crew is very different to The Acolyte. I might not have liked that show, but I have to admit, after it was done, they moved on so freaking fast. They purged their social media accounts of any mention of it. The banner changed, one week to the next. They moved swiftly onto Skeleton Crew. They read the room. They understood the way the fandom felt about it. And even that Disney executive came out and said, we spend far too much on it. They haven't done any of that for Skeleton Crew. And now that we're a few weeks on, they're still promoting it. They still put out polls, posters, they did a fun quiz on their website. They understand that those who watched it really enjoyed it. And so, like I said, viewership is important, but it's not the only metric. I'm sorry to sound like a broken record, I know we talk a lot about viewership, but that seems to be one of the primary things in the Star Wars news cycle, especially during these downtimes. But what do you guys think? Are you excited for Celebration? Do you want to see some Ahsoka content? Do you think we'll get a promo? Let me know. And if you enjoyed this video, guys, as always, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you, always.